Good afternoon. This is Darren Crawley, the Partner Account Manager here for Cloud for Partners at Ascari. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar, which is very much focused on a key component of the Cloud for Partners service, specifically security, what we do to deliver security to our customers and our partners, and how we evolve security in the face of the constant threat that we all see on a day-to-day basis. So first and foremost, just wanted to welcome all of our delegates today. A little bit of housekeeping. We have all delegates on mute, but there will be the opportunity to ask questions. On the webinar dashboard, you'll have a chat feature as well as a questions box, and we'll be monitoring that during the course of the webinar so we can answer any questions in the Q&A at the end. I'd also like to welcome my colleague Matt Walker, who's joining us today. He's Senior Systems Engineer here at Ascari, and I will introduce Matt towards the end of the session as and when we have those questions coming through. So without further ado, we'll move on to today's agenda. So we'll do a little bit of scene setting first and foremost, just to let you know a little bit about who we are and what we do for the benefit of people who are joining us for the first time today. What we also want to do is, as well as give a little bit more information about Ascari and specifically Cloud for Partners, we also want to delve deeper into the benefits of working with us and using the Cloud for Partners platform. Look specifically at what sort of security risks may be out there, and also give you a little bit more insight into how we counter those risks on a day-to-day basis. In addition, we can give you a little bit more information about why we chose AWS as our hosting partner, as well as giving you some further insight into advanced security and monitoring features, both within the AWS environment as well as our own environment too. And then obviously we can give you a little bit more insight into why it works really well for partners who already do business with us to use the Cloud for Partners hosting service, and give you a little bit more of a flavour of what the actual Cloud for Partners experience is all about. So just really to let some of the newcomers know a little bit more about us, we actually started as Ascari, an SAP Gold Partner in 2013. And right from the get-go, our Chief Executive Officer, Stuart Wilson, wanted to position Ascari as a reseller of SAP Business One with a cloud-first mentality. And indeed, that carries on through to all of the work we do as a company today. 90%, 95% even of our deployments and day-to-day business are actually centered on a cloud environment. So we're very much specialists in this type of technology and have been so for the past decade. So not surprisingly, as a result of that, we actually found very quickly that other partners who wanted to enjoy the benefits of cloud deployment for SAP Business One started approaching us to actually see if we could host their customers as well. And this is why Cloud for Partners as a service was born. And over the years, that service has developed and enhanced as we look at the capabilities of cloud deployment and also talk to our partners so we understand what it is they need for their customers to effectively run SAP Business One within a cloud environment. And we've been doing that not just within our local marketplace in the UK and Ireland, we've been doing that effectively across all continents, mainland Europe, Africa, the Far East, and also North America. And in essence, what we're actually delivering is an ability to deploy through modern hosting techniques and products, the capability of SAP Business One wherever you are in the world and on whatever device you choose to use. But more importantly, regardless of where you are and what type of hardware you're using, ultimately it is secure and robust. And security is very much part of the key focus for Cloud for Partners. If you look at the business as a whole, we have three foundations or core pillars to our service that are absolutely vital, and those are security, stability, and scalability. Everything we do as an organization is through those three pillars. And if I was to actually say what pillar of our service is actually the most crucial and is always at the forefront of our minds, it's certainly the security aspect. No work is undertaken, no innovation takes place without us looking at security as the #1 requirement. And there's a very good reason for that. We all know that the potential costs of a security breach can literally cost millions of dollars, pounds, or euros. But more importantly, it damages a company's brand and reputation, and that is very, very difficult to recover once that is lost. And what we wanted to do was really sort of allay fears, particularly for new customers of our partners who are coming into the cloud for the first time. Typically, in the past, some customers have always viewed cloud as potentially risky venture, but that's not so. In fact, going into a cloud deployment model in this day and age is actually more secure and risk-free than it would be actually if you're operating your own on-site, on-premise operation. And I can explain a little bit more why that is. So going back a couple of years ago now, we were actually looking at the topic of security. And since, obviously, things have moved on since then, we've seen major global events, whether it's most recently the war in Ukraine, prior to that and still today, tensions with China, North Korea. These type of global threats from hostile or, what should we say, malcontent states does create security risks. But it's not just state actors or state players and their proxies that can pose a security risk to an organization. We have organized crime as well as lone wolf hacking and cyber terrorists who basically can also pose a risk. But we actually did some research and we looked at potentially where breaches can occur, and this was actually in advance of us launching Duo MFA as a two-factor authentication solution in the early part of 2021. And we actually found from looking at that intelligence that 76% of the breaches that do occur tend to be from weak or stolen credentials. And that's because 92% of anybody who's attacking a company's system or infrastructure are usually outside of the business. They're not, or the organization, they're not insiders typically. However, we do also find that in most situations, there tends to be a financial purpose for going down that route. And that's why we see, for instance, financial organizations or large corporates being particularly prone to this type of attack. 37 to 38% of victims tend to be in that category. However, no matter how large or how small a business is or an operation, there is still the possibility of damage and disruption and loss, because ultimately, whenever cyber attackers or cyber terrorists are actually out there looking to inflict damage, what we tend to find is whatever tool or delivery method they use, it does tend to be that it's a bit like water. In essence, it's always the path of least resistance. And that's partly why we implemented Duo MFA, our two-factor authentication service, at the beginning of 2021, because we saw very, very quickly this was an easy way to actually make the job that much more difficult. However, there are significantly more aspects to the defense of your customers' data, and I will go into a little bit more detail shortly. And just out of interest, with regards to that, one of the first things that does come into play is actually the strength of AWS itself. AWS is a tier 4 secure environment for data architecture. So it has one of the highest levels of security, reliability and uptime that you can actually find within a hyperscale environment. So we always ensure that data for all of our partners, customers and prospects is stored securely in that AWS environment. And we do work on top of that. It's a shared responsibility model. So although we have a very solid foundation storing data within AWS, we also manage that data going in and out of that environment very, very carefully. Now, one of the things that we've utilized as part of our defense mechanisms is actually the deployment of SentinelOne antivirus software. And this is one of the leading AV software solutions in the world, and it exploits something called MITRE database. So we use this AI native cloud tooling to detect any anomalous behavior that may be identified across the piece. So that's a couple of examples of where leading technology platforms and software products and tools really come into play. But if I was to actually sort of look at it across the board, I'd probably say that when you're looking at our overall security solution, we've actually got 6 core components. We've got the actual encryption of the data itself, whether that's at rest or in transit. We utilize network segmentation and filter traffic to effectively de-risk any individual customer service units. We also, obviously, as I've mentioned just before, look at the basic fundamentals and say, if you're accessing the platform as a user to use SAP Business One in the cloud, obviously Duo 2-factor authentication has to be utilized as well. In addition to this, we look at things like vulnerability scanning to see where weak points are. We do not rest on our laurels. We look at what else potentially can come into play, and we do regular penetration testing. And while that's taking place, we have SentinelOne looking at the whole of the platform as its guardian angel, as antivirus protection. And finally, we rely on the fact that there's good secure user account practice, whether that's externally with the users signing in, or indeed internally on our internal systems as well. So this is a very good reason to actually be reassured, although there are threats within the global environment, we do our best to mitigate those for you. And ultimately, what we're doing is we're looking at working with our partners to deliver the best experience for customers when it comes to deploying SAP Business One on our cloud platform. And it's a cyclical process. We're always working with partners, whether that's at the first stage of building your very first service unit, or whether it's a case of looking at managing that service unit, enhancing it, adding more customers or users. We're always in dialogue and in partnership with the SAP resellers to make sure that we're actually doing the right things, both for them and also for the customer base. And this really starts right from the ground upwards. So one of the things I mentioned earlier is the fact that we use AWS as the bedrock for a secure and stable environment for your customer data. And then we add those extra layers that I mentioned previously about what makes it a secure environment so that we can actually make sure moving forwards, your customer has the best experience possible. And because we're a global player, we deploy in all parts of the globe. So yes, there are different threats in different territories, but ultimately we have a world-class system and world-class experienced and certified technical staff to make sure that we're up to speed with what we do next, to make sure not just that today's system is secure and stable, but tomorrow and the day after as well. Now, I will revert to some questions shortly. So I just want to introduce my colleague, Matt Walker. I'll just see if I can unmute you there, Matt, and we can then have a bit more of an in-depth conversation.
Hi guys, hi.
Thank you, Matt. So welcome to today's webinar. We've got a number of people certainly very interested to know a little bit more about what we do under the bonnet, and I just wanted to see if there was any immediate questions from the audience. So I'm just checking the chat box now. Just going back to some of those aspects, Matt, while we're just having a look there, can you maybe, I know we spent a lot of time and effort putting together a Cloud for Partners security guide for our partners. Maybe just going back to things like encryption and vulnerability scanning and the Sentinel-1 AV protection. Maybe you could give me some thoughts or initial sort of opinions from your experience of being at the sharp end from a technical perspective.
Certainly, yeah. We're starting off with the encryption side of things. We obviously everything that transfers over the internet now needs to be encrypted in transit. So it's very, very strong ciphered. The industry standard SSL ciphers now. And then also once at rest, the EBS volumes that we use are all encrypted from day one. During the construction of the service unit, they are encrypted straight away. At an archival level, the S3 buckets that we use to store the backups, so to speak, of your data is also encrypted at a very high standard. We use the Amazon KMS service for that, and those keys are stored securely, again within AWS, and are only accessible by a set number of people. And it's almost like the nuclear sub scenario. We need 2 members of staff to have the keys to access that information. With regard to antivirus, I mean I've used over a very long career many antivirus packages, and I've never come across one so effective as the Sentinel-1 system. It was brought in just before I joined Ascari, and I was blown away by the level of service we receive from Sentinel-1. I mean, they've normally mitigated risk before I've even had a chance to finish reading the email of the notification. They're an absolutely outstanding. But yeah, so from the encryption and antivirus point of view, I think that just about covers it. We've got any questions on that?
Yeah, I'm just going through a few. So we've got one from Adam. How customizable are the MFA options?
The MFA that we use is, as Darren mentioned, Cisco's Duo multi-factor authentication package. So we try and use the most secure components of it. So we at present only support the use of the Duo mobile app and secure keys. So the Fentian, we currently offer YubiKeys and Fentian support. Fetian, I can never pronounce that word, I apologize. Fetian support. So we offer as I said, the mobile app, so that prompts you when you try to log onto the platform. The device that is allocated to that user comes up with a notification that asks you to prompt to authorize that. That prompt, the data from that prompt is then sent back showing the rough location of that person and the IP address. So we've got some granular reporting there on that front. The hardware keys are obviously a one-time passcode kind of situation. They are also just as secure, but obviously offer that hardware key option where you don't need the staff member to have their mobile phone out on their desk or other device out on their desk while working, which some people do find a bit of a distraction. From a customization point of view, it can be applied to one or all of the members of staff or the users of the platform. So for example, if you have certain members of staff limited to only do certain applications, you may not want them to have MFA straight away. However, you may want your financial directors and your accountants, bookkeepers, so to speak, all with MFA because they can access that higher level of information. So it is quite a customizable platform, but within limits of what we deem to be secure.
Of course, and that will always be the main priority, to make sure that that security is as stringent as it can be. In addition to that question, we just had another one come in actually. What's the disadvantage of clients using their own servers versus cloud?
Well, the number one that normally springs to mind would be the cost. With the cloud, you've got that elasticity. So if you, for example, I mean, I've come from an on-premise environment in the past where if you need to improve the level of service, you need more storage capacity, it all comes at an instant cost, and that's a long-term cost. The elasticity of the cloud is that if you need to scale up for whatever reason for a short period, for example, if you're doing your year end and you feel you need a bit more performance, or you're doing some testing, we can scale up that service unit and the servers within that service unit to a particular level and scale them back down. There is no long-term investment in the hardware behind that. I would also argue that the security comes into the benefit of this cloud, mainly in the security as well. People that say it's harder to get into the AWS data centers than it is Fort Knox.
That's true. Yes, I understand. Yeah, it's very much a no-go zone. They do not let people into those data centers, and obviously because there's multiple data centers as well, in the unlikely event that anything did happen by way of a physical security breach, it's still business as usual for those guys, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. Yes, there are multiple availability zones within each region. So if availability zone will be a traditional data center, that availability zone goes down, everything switches over to the next one, basically.
Yeah, I think also if you're looking at it from the on-premise perspective, and I've actually had this conversation with a SAP Business One customer a few years ago, you can make assumptions just because you can see the physical infrastructure, because it's in a room on your site, you think it's secure, and you can do as much as you want. But it can be almost like a false sense of security. Would you agree with that?
Definitely. Just as you say, just because you can see those physical servers does not necessarily mean they're secure. Without someone sat watching them constantly, you do not know who's connecting to them and from where. You don't know what happened overnight when you weren't in. Did the cleaner pop in and stick a USB stick into the front of them? Yep. Who knows?
And I've heard some very, very sort of unusual circumstances. I think one customer told me back in the day, and I hasten to say it wasn't an Ascari customer. They basically had an IP telephony system for their switchboard, and in fact, their whole network got hacked and brought down because that wasn't actually viewed as a security priority alongside the main servers for the software and the systems.
I've heard a lot of similar stories, including CCTV systems that are put in but are left wide open, and malicious actors have gained access to database servers hopping in from the CCTV recorder.
Yes,
you could have all sorts of issues along those lines.
Yeah, it's still a point of entry for, as far as data is concerned, isn't it? And that's always the threat level. Okay, we do also have a question about patching. Could you maybe sort of educate us a little bit more on that one, Matt? I know that's something you know a little about.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, I think covers quite well in the security aspect of it. Obviously, your system is not only as secure as its most recent update. Up until a few years ago now, we were operating using Amazon's patching service as part of the systems manager. But unfortunately, that wasn't offering us the granularity and the reporting that we were after. So what we moved on to using the Windows Server Update service, which is pretty much an industry standard now. That's given us a much greater control and granularity over the settings of these updates. Every server that we deploy, every Windows server that we deploy, obviously, is connected up to that and part of a scheduled weekly update. But we have a limit in there. We obviously test deploy updates before they're deployed across platform, and all the reporting's in place there. So if a server misses an update, one of our engineering team will jump on that server and check us to see as to why. That's part of our monitoring system. We have dashboards in place for that. And everyone knows a Windows update can misplaced Windows update can can cause some serious problems. So as I say, everything's tested before deployment and then actively monitored to ensure that no update has caused any major issues that we can't resolve quickly.
And again, that's the beauty of the cloud environment. So you can have
Exactly,
a test bed that runs entirely separately. You make sure it all works, and then basically then it can be moved over to production without causing any downtime or any hiccups, which is vital for a business that
exactly.
It's critical data, isn't it?
It is critical data, and at the end of the day, the updates are scheduled at a particular point in the week when hopefully nobody's interacting with the system. Because as we all know, Windows updates do require a reboot occasionally. However, that can be completely customizable. So if, for instance, you have a global workforce and we need to reschedule those updates to a different time, we can do that. That's part of our platform, basically.
Yeah, and also the fact that we're quite used to working in a global environment. So the businesses operate around the world 24/7, but whenever there's an opportunity for making changes or enhancing the security protocols or even just basic operation of those service units, we make sure it's done to make sure that there's the minimum of inconvenience, if any, to any customer, no matter where they are. Sorry, I've not got any more questions coming through. So I guess from your perspective, Matt, what would you probably see as the most exciting thing moving forwards with what we're doing with the platform and how that's developing?
With regard to security, obviously I'm waxing lyrical today, but with regard to security, I think moving forward we're looking more granular control of our higher level access, PAM solution, which is going to allow us to temporarily provide admin access, elevated privileges, if you will, to particular members of a SCARI team or to partners, for example, who do not need to be to have, for want of better, administrative access to a particular server permanently, but they will need it for a couple of hours on a particular day. So that's one of the things that's exciting me to have that control, that we can offer that to a customer to just keep that security even tighter. That covers on one of our principles of least privilege. Basically, we only grant access that is required. We're not one of. I've come across environments and organizations in the past where everyone's given full admin access from day one and they're just allowed to do as they will. But no, our principles of least privilege is something we're quite proud of, that we keep everything locked down to a bare minimum of what access is required without having adverse implications on people's ability to work.
Yeah, but it reduces that risk, and it's that granularity that's really key, isn't it? The more you can focus on what will actually make things work and what will prevent a breach, the more insight, the more granularity you can have to actually identify what is good, what's bad. That makes the difference. Doesn't it?
It does, yes.
And I think that's really important. It's all about communication. I think if partners are actually talking to customers or prospects that maybe are a little bit cloud skeptical, we fully understand that. Some businesses, particularly in the small medium business sector, are still dipping their toe into the water. My view would always be we can have a conversation with the partner and the customer just to go into some of that granularity. And what you tend to find is after sort of 3 or 4 questions, maybe half a dozen, really the penny starts to sink that it really is better to be in a cloud environment using the right protocols and the right software products and the right platform with the right people, of course, so they know what they're doing. That way it's much more of a reassuring prospect than continuing on the on-premise scenario, and also it's more cost effective and more business effective as well. So you've got the security, you've got the benefits of reduced cost, but you've also got that ability of being more capable because it gives you so much control and capability. So we really do feel it's a direction that's only going one way.
Yes.
Just for the partner network who are maybe dialing in for the first time today, what I would say is we do have a platform security PDF document, as well as a more detailed Cloud for Partner security guide. And one of the things we'll be doing at the end of the call is, with all the delegates who've dialed in today, if you would like to have a copy of that, I'll make sure either myself or my colleague actually send that out to you, so you can have a little bit more of a look at some of the points that we've highlighted today. Matt, I would like to say thank you very much for your input. It's great to have a member of our technical team on the call, actually telling our partners what exactly is going on, what we do day to day to make sure we keep those bad guys at bay. And also, looking a little bit ahead into the future, of course. And ultimately, if there's a particular project or customer or prospect environment that you want to discuss with us on a one-to-one basis, we can certainly make ourselves available at any time. So, Matt, thank you very much. I appreciate we've had a good session today. I really appreciate your input. And for all of our partners who've dialed in today, thank you very much. We hope you have a great day if you're just at the start of the day, as you are in North America, or if you're further east and you're just coming towards the end of today, we hope you have a pleasant evening. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll look forward to speaking to you.
Bye now.
Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye.
Bye.